Howdy, y'all, and welcome to video number 53. We're going to begin a new series of videos that strictly pertain to my writing. This is going to be a collection of writing inspired by the Bible, the name of which is Priya Vedanta. Now, Priya Vedanta means beloved teachings. And this is my effort to sort of combine Eastern and Western philosophical thoughts into a more I hate to say modern, but all these things were written a long time ago, and we don't understand them very well anymore. They use phrases that we simply do not know what they mean. So I think it's important that we update the teachings of the past, trying to keep as much of the fidelity that we can, and adding in what we understand and what we've learned over the last couple centuries, millennia, thousands of years. Forgive me. This is going to be probably a series of 5 books. First book is called Walking with God, and Anama here is part 1. 3 or 4 chapters. I can't remember what I finally finished it as. Now it's available to read on Substack. First couple chapters anyway. And part 1 and part 2 are actually both available on Medium right now. The second part is called Logos, and I am still rewriting that. And then the third part, of which I haven't named, that'll complete book 1, will finish. I'm going to sort of do a retelling of the story of Job at the end, but I'm following along with the Bible and adding in stories from around the world to tell this story. Now, this whole thing started with Jordan Peterson when he did his biblical series, and I realized something had been lost. So I went out sort of, researching for myself, and I came across this idea that there's this Jewish tradition of copying the Bible by hand. And so I'm like, hey, I'm going to do that. And I started, and I realized that I didn't quite understand what I was writing. I didn't know what it meant. And as I researched each word, I realized that there were different interpretations and different meanings. And it made me realize that I didn't really even understand what I believed to be true, what I believed as my understanding of the world that we live within. That's how I got on this path. Now, I'm not making this series of videos is not going to be about me. This is definitely about the writing itself. But that's sort of how I stumbled on this. That's why you'll hear me talk all the time about, Jordan Peterson got me started on this. Or it was, I talk all the time about how starting to write the Bible down by hand is what led me to this. And that's where it all comes from. And I genuinely believe that the philosophy and metaphysics that I am going to be, that I've been working on, is actually already available within the Bible. The Bible is so open to interpretation. It covers so many different ideas that you can extract many different threads. And the thread of Gnostic Vedanta is in the Bible. Now, it requires practicing of exclusions, but I believe that's what the Bible is actually meant to be done. I call the Bible the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Both are in the Bible, which I know is fairly controversial to say, but the path of evil is in the Bible. and the path of good is also there. And that's what I'm attempting to do, is to extract out what I consider to be the good path, or a good path. I don't mean the. Another thing that I want to say very early on is I really didn't write this. I hate to say that I'm a conduit, but I'm pretty much a conduit. I just ask questions, and a lot of times these things come to me in my sleep, or I'll watch a lot of like podcasts, or listen to some podcasts of people discussing ideas. Like lately, it's been Ian McGilchrist is just like striking huge resonance with where I'm going with this. He just does it from an academic perspective, and I'm going to fully lay this out in as metaphysics and myth. This story is mythology. It's written to be mythology. This is not a scientific work. It's not even a work on metaphysics or philosophy. All of those are contained within this. This is the myth that supports the ideas. The other day I made a story about love and what I thought love was. And in chapter 1, love is one of the characters. It's going to arise fairly late in the story, but the metaphysics is supported by this mythology. And I think telling stories to explain what we believe is the way we actually communicate. It's the way we actually think. It's the reason why they wrote the Bible. It's the reason why they wrote the Bhagavad Gita or the Tao. All the great teachers have written mythology to try and explain who we are, where we are, and how this place works, and how to have the best possible life, which is what I'm aiming for. I'm not trying to convince people of anything. I'm just trying to say, hey, this is what appears to be true. This is what our ancient ancestors have said is true. This is what modern philosophy and science has added to this. And perhaps if we look at it with honesty, we can figure out who we are and how to live the best possible life. So I'm not going to ramble on any more than that. We're probably going to get through the first 1 or 2 sentences, because I think I probably need to keep this about 20-30 minutes. And I'll just keep releasing these segments in this series. Again, this is in the the library is going to be called Priya Vedanta. Book 1 is Walking with God. Part 1 is entitled Anama. And Anama means without names. Now, there's going to be 2 or 3 names in here, maybe 5 names, something like that. But the majority of this part will be stories told where nobody has names, which is why I named it this. And what I'm trying to imply is this is so far back in history that we don't know the names. So this is prehistory. And all of Anama is my prequel to Genesis 1. Genesis begins with a catastrophe. Everyone has sort of realized that, hey, God is recreating the earth from some sort of cataclysm. It doesn't say cataclysm, but it's implied. So Anama is my attempt to write the cataclysm that led, this might be loud, that led to Genesis 1. I think it's 1, 2. So this is the prequel to Genesis. This is the meat cross. I've made videos on it in the past, and I think there's still one in the current channel. This is you. It is the walking cross. It is facing forward because we move through time. It is also a sheathed sword, which is where meek comes from. It is a powerful person that is capable but keeps their power under control. A sheathed sword. It also represents judgment. That is the tipping of the arms. There is judgment in this life. I think everyone knows that. If you live your life, depending on which path you choose to walk down, it will change the outcome of your life. Now, whether or not you have free will to choose each path, that's up for debate. But there's clearly ramifications. There's clearly judgment for the path that we choose to live. Well, I don't know why I'm so phlegmy right now. It also represents sacrifice. And what's being sacrificed here, this is the offering of Mary. It's the holding of baby Jesus. The baby Jesus like this. And it's the holding of Jesus after he is dead. It is this voluntary knowing, understanding that when we enter this world and we create within this world, when we offer something to this world, every single part of that, every single thing will be destroyed. But we do it anyway. We voluntarily offer to bring children in this world, to build in this world, to create in this world, knowing that it will come to an end. So that's the meek cross in short. There's 3 words that you'll hear me sort of use: meek, Gnostic, and Vedanta. I've been playing with these 3 words for a long time. I came across Matthew 5:5 very early on, and it actually sort of led me down a lot of this path. So that's the meek cross. I'm going to come down here, and this is the symbol for where we are. The circle represents source or God. The triangle represents the emanation or ether, and the square represents reality. So this is a pictogram of the way our reality appears to be. Now you will see I use this symbol where I put the meek cross inside of the square. And that's the Gnostic Vedanta sign or symbol or whatever, meaning that, here we are in this reality, and this is the shape of our reality, an emanation of source. But we're in this construction. That's why it's square. It's a construction. Don't want to dwell too much on that. So, chapter 1, pleroma, very much a Gnostic word meaning, I think it's fullness. And it's a great way of visualizing source. Or I think they would look at it like the heavens, but source is where everything comes from. It is everything knowable. It's energy, it's information. And the general idea is that it was so full of information and so full of energy that something happened and it overflowed. And that overflow is what eventually led to our reality. It led to the emanation. But it was this fullness, is this overly full. So word 1 is Aum. This is very much meditation. And I want that to be right up front. We are meditating on ideas. This is not doctrine. This is not, like I said, it's not scripture. This isn't academic. This is a meditation. It's a contemplation on who we are and where we are and how to be, of course, live a better life. 1, there is source, beautifully unknowable, eternal home soil, nourishing the becoming of being, exploring knowledge, and discovering meaning. So, number one, now, source, again, is that circle that everything emanates from. And in line one, I wanted to make it very clear. We have no idea what it is. We'll never know. It's unknowable. And there's beauty in that unknowing. But we're going to go ahead and explore anyway, because we're meditating on this. So up front, we're meditating on something that is unknowable. But it's like every theory asks you to believe something, you need a miracle. And the miracle that I'm asking for here is that source exists. I'm declaring that it exists, but I have no proof. I have no evidence. So that is the one miracle that I'm asking for. And then we will contemplate from there. And again, fully acknowledge we do not know. I do not know. I will never claim to know. That is not what this is about. Now, I call it home soil. That it's where life comes from. So this is a metaphysics that believes that we emanate from somewhere. This isn't a creation that was built and there's some God overseeing us or anything. It's we flow from source to explore knowledge and discover meaning. So I'm literally laying up front that I believe the purpose for life is literally this. I think source wants to understand itself. It wants to explore itself. It wants to know what it means. It's like we are all born with this deep down, like, why are we here? What does any of this mean? I think that's a fundamental question, that the question itself emanates from source. Source wants to know. And that is the purpose for our existence, is to explore these things. Let's go ahead and do number 2. Given many names, yet known by precious few. Brahman, monad, the one, the rock. Source is the unchartable ocean of invisible light that buoys the heart and anchors the soul. So what I'm trying to do here is say, we could kind of live our lives sort of blind to the reality around us. But we're exposed to all of these different ideas. And these are the idea of Brahman and monad. Monad is Gnostic for God, Brahman being Hindu. And I am proposing, and the rock and the one are both mostly Christian, Judeo-Christian concepts. I've had other names in there, and I seem to change it from time to time. Monad and Brahman are going to be there for sure. But I wanted to make it clear up front that this is a non-dual philosophy, meaning that everything that emanates from source is source. There is only source, meaning we are also only source. And that's why you'll hear like everyone say, we are all gods or whatever. We're not gods. We are just God. There's only God. This camera and microphone and whatnot are just source. Because again, the basis of the philosophy is that source is exploring itself to understand. And I go back again, it's unchartable, meaning, it's invisible light. So this is, I'm using paradox and to say, hey, again, we can't know anything beyond where we are now. So I'm kind of trying to hammer this up front. But it buoys your heart and anchors your soul. What I'm trying to say here is this is where we come from. This is home soil. And knowing these things helps give us the strength and energy to move through this life, which can be really, really tough at times. And this is where our soul comes from. We are there. We are at source. We aren't in this reality. We are emanating from source. We are anchored here. This is where we are. But we've come here to play the game. We've come here to the stage. We've come here to play a role that some people will say is, already been predetermined. I don't think so. I genuinely believe that there is absolutely cause and effect. But this predeterministic concept means that there'd be no exploration. There'd be no meaning. The meaning of something is discovered through the writing. Once a writer's written the story, the meaning has already been found. Now, you can say you can play it out, but that's just it. You're playing it out. I do believe that this is a genuine search. This isn't a reenactment of the search. Which, a lot of folks believe in simulation theory, and they might say, hey, yeah, actually that's all we're doing. We're just reenacting. We're the what is it, the old 35 millimeter slideshow. People are sitting around going, you remember back when? Yeah. This is our trip to Vegas, that kind of thing. I don't believe so. I believe we are in a genuine search for meaning. I believe source is in a genuine search for meaning. And the reason why it's genuine is because if you just wanted to know and you really didn't, if it wasn't genuine, just would have done it yourself. I think this, and you're done. But when you spread it out over billions and billions and billions of lives, over however many years and how many experiences, think about the combined number of sunrises have been seen by humanity. If you want to know what a sunrise means, you'd experience it that many times, if not more. Then you would truly know the meaning. You'd understand the experience. You'd gain the knowledge. I'm not quite sure how long we've been going, but let's go ahead and go down to 3. Actually, let's do the, we'll do the first 5 maybe. Again, I haven't planned this out, and hopefully this doesn't go too long because I would have to compress it. But here, boundless awareness, roots and bliss. Beneath natural forces, boil and seethe, churn and eddy from within the deep. So here we begin our imagining of this invisible ocean. Again, it's just an imagining. It's a contemplation. It's a meditation. But source is at bliss. It's peaceful. And as it's peacefully contemplating its own existence, the knowledge, the information, the energy that exists within source is doing its thing. I'm implying here that there is a nature, and even source itself has a nature. This is the Tao. This is the forces that just naturally happen. So having living information, which is what I call source, living information, it's energy and it's information. The tree of life, the tree of knowledge, these two. this is source. And it just naturally, it's like little bits of data begin to group together. They begin to form an identity. Like, hey, we all relate to this concept of, say, gravity or magnetism or some sort of emotion, fear or love or hate. And these things just naturally kind of gravitate, You'll see in the Bible, and I use it here, that like sticks with like. And I think this is a natural force. And so this natural force that exists here, I'm imagining it exists there. Because I think the emanation has to somehow reflect the reality. So if source is reality, and we are the living mirror we are the divine mirror of reality, that we are at least similar to the actual genuine source. We are a reflection of that. And so the fact that like sticks with like here, living information itself probably would stick like to like. Is the idea that we're going after here. And again, we're building very, very base level metaphysics to construct a system that we will then develop a philosophy and a religion that sit on top of. And once, perhaps just the once, these waters overflowed, whether by pulse, dream, or thought, they did and do overflow. So this ocean, this idea sort of stems from, like I said, this idea that the pleroma was so full that it, something caused it to overflow its boundary. To be honest, it's it's this contained entity, and something caused it to splash out into the void, to overflow into the void, to form the heavens. Again, this is not physics, this is not science, this is an exercise of thought. Now, a lot of the dream idea, this is like, there's a lot of like Eastern philosophy that says that we live within the dream of God. So I'm just sort of tipping my hat to that. This idea of a thought that I'm going to go down a little bit and explain further, because I sort of use that as my version, even though, again, I don't know which it is. I say right here, whether it be, I don't know, but perhaps a thought. So this idea that a thought caused something to, move, and that movement caused this overflow. And this pulse is it's a concept. It's in Kashmiri Shaivism, and the pulse is called spanda, and they believe is this vibration. And even that's a dream, a thought. They could be a pulse. That's something caused a movement. And this movement caused this original emanation, is what we're trying to say here, or what I'm trying to say. But even this is really, really sort of backed up by even physics today. And I'm not going to go into detail because I can't. I'm not a physicist, and I really kind of don't care. I do listen to quite a few of them speaking, just because it gives me ideas for writing mythology, which is a strange thing to say, but everything's frequency. So this idea that if everything is frequency, life began as frequency, is probably not, a bad idea. I don't know of a better one, but we're actually going to stick with thought. But a thought is a vibration. It is a frequency. I think it's a great way of imagining existence coming into being. Because another thing that we're doing here on a fundamental level is trying to grapple with consciousness itself. And this first chapter is actually explicitly about consciousness itself. And when I first wrote this, I was imagining. No, so I was imagining being like the first person to ever have that voice in their head. What that would do to you. It's like, what was that? I mean, it's just got to be, almost impossible to recover from. You know, you're at total bliss, you're in harmony with reality, and all of a sudden something speaks. Is that something even you? And how do we live with this? How do we live with the fact that we're aware of who we are? So this is another one of those things that's not only are we imagining reality itself, but we're imagining our role in reality. We're imagining our mind and our thoughts. All of these are being covered in these first 5 sentences. Saying we don't know where we come from, but we have to come from somewhere. We don't know who we are, what we are, but we seem to be trying to figure this out. And for some reason, whatever it is, something caused this to happen. And how are we going to live with this? How are we going to deal with the fact that we know we exist, and we know that it is limited? This is where Gnostic Vedanta, this is what we're exploring. And these are the first 5 sentences. Oh, yeah, we didn't do number 5, so let's do number 5. Was it a thought? Barbello, perhaps, the first of thoughts. The shot fired from an unseen hunter, shattering stillness, spilling living waters into and fulfilling the void. So, Barbello is, again, Anama is supposed to be no names, but I decided to keep Barbello in here. And this is a Gnostic idea. And Barbello was the first thought that caused the pleroma to spill over. Now, this first shot fired from an unseen hunter, this is an image that I've had in my mind for a very long time, and I just added the line recently. And that's this imagining of an elk or a deer or something, some game animal. It's a spring morning, eating the grass. Its breath is visible. It's surrounded by its family and friends and the herd and whatnot. And then all of a sudden, it becomes aware it's being watched. And then this image of crosshairs right over its eye, and the hunter and the hunted meet eye to eye through these crosshairs. Sort of like the idea of the first person to have words appear in their head. It's like imagine being the first being. And that's what it's imagining. It's imagining being the first being that's aware that they're being watched. Their consciousness meets another consciousness, or their awareness, it's the right word. Their awareness is meeting another awareness in the field. This actually is the birth of consciousness. This is one of the things that we propose. It's this field of potential, and 2 awarenesses meet. And that meeting sparks consciousness. That's what that says. But we'll be, like I said, we'll be expanding upon this throughout the rest of the library. Probably rambled on long enough. I'm probably going to record another video right after this, but I think I got to keep them pretty short to get them posted onto YouTube. So there you are, my friends, the first 5 sentences. A little bit of the symbolism and where we're going with this. I'll see you in the next one, my friends.